Hello, my name is Brant Hutt. My channel simply is Discerning What is True. Today is the 7th day of July 2024. I'm going to be reading from Alvin Kuhn's work called Easter, the Birthday of the Gods. So this section is simply going to be called Soul in Nature's Womb. So we'll get into this. It's not going to be that long, but I wanted to continue to share this to those who have ears to hear and eyes to see. So let's get into the reading. Well, I'm going to. What's the deal here, folks? This section is called Soul in Nature's Womb. At the September point, the soul enters what the ancients call its feminine phase, as it was in its youth, and under the care of its maternal, that is, or material parent. It became the infinite prince of a future kingship, being for its tutelage and education a childhood stage, and as St. Paul says, Galatians 4, quote, under tutors and guardians unto the time appointed of the Father, end quote, at which time it would have developed in capacity for kingly rule of the lower elements of its dominion over man's life. Correct. These are the three bottom not attributes, but actually elements of your body, or chakras, you would say, so to speak. Unless you get those, quote unquote, in control, you really can't move upward. And there are those who speak about simply so you can go all the way up to your crown chakra, whatever you want to call it, and bypass that. That's baloney. False teachers, again, teaching you all kinds of ridiculous stuff. So when I should say four. I don't know if I said four, but anyway, the four lower chakras in your body, and your three other ones are more important, which is part of the Trinity. The Trinity within you. So let's continue. Thus, the apostle says that though it is potentiality, that is, Lord of all, it is at this stage of servitude to the elements or elementaries of the lower worlds until the day of the enthronement. In this bondage to the law of physics, the powers of matter, which is strictly for its education, is the unawakened soul in an animal body. So you have to, in order to actually get up to the higher realm, folks, you have to have control of your body and your struggles for addictions it has, and all wares of it. If you're not in control of that, it's impossible to you move upward. It just is impossible, because you are a slave to your body. And most people are. For example, many people are addicted to all kinds of drugs, smoking, alcohol, you name it, sex, whatever. The point simply is that you don't have control of your body. If you don't have control of it, you cannot go upward. It's just the same thing with the base of the pyramid again. Again, revealing simply is that the square. Yes, the square is important, but you have to get that settled and grounded. And if not, you can't move upward. You can't. As Plato puts it, it is through his body an animal, while through its mind it is a god. It is then what St. Paul distinguishes as the first or natural man, the man of animal propensities, obeying the lusts of the flesh and the urges of the carnal mind, these being the instincts of the body in which it is enscored. So One might say that in September the soul is born, quote, from above. That is the Bible phrases into animality. At December, it is awakened enough to be born at the next higher stage, humanity, that is. And at Easter in March, it is reborn into the still higher kingdoms of the immortal gods. If September is the birthday of man, human who is potentially divine, March is the birthday of a man as a god. Easter is the birthday of the gods, you see, says the Hoary Book of the Dead, designating the soul by one of its several specific titles. That is Pepi. Pepi sailed it with Ra to the eastern side of heaven, where the gods are born. We as souls go to our death in matter of the equinox at the winter solstice. We cease, that is, dying to matter, and are quickened. So matter is, folks, the lower aspects of who you are. Okay? And are quickened to insipid renewal of life at the spring equinox. We rise in supernatural life and exuberance of blessingness. Only when the soul has traversed this aeonic path round the numberless cycles of existence can it know the full reality of the Easter deification. By apt and striking symbols of the sages of old sought to impress dull mortal thought with imaginary suggestive of new birth. They pointed to the chick pecking its way out of its shell, the snake shedding its old skin and coming forth sleek and shining, the locust bursting out of its old body and winging its way up into the light and air, the beetle emerging out of the earth, the butterfly from the cocoon, the hibernating bear waking from his sleep in the hollow tree, the emergence of all life from the egg. Hence, the egg becomes the basic symbol of the festival. That's what Easter is talking about. You see all the Easter bunny, and all that kind of stuff. You told this child, and guess what we did? We searched for eggs, little kids. Go find the eggs, such and such. Even though our parents had no idea what they were doing, it was just a tradition. It's really sad. Some of these traditions actually speaking of something far deeper. It's not really a child's game, so to speak. Well, that's what it's become. As the young God breaks finally the shell of his human body to effect his delivery from the flesh. Yes. No longer, quote unquote, enslaved to the flesh, to all the things that you get involved in, folks. And it keeps you bound. It keeps you bound. It keeps you here. It keeps you in bondage. And be released into the absolute freedom of the spirit. This is why people don't move forward, folks. They're in bondage. They don't see. They don't see the effort. Most say simply is, oh, I'm here one time and that's it. It's over with, so who cares? Well, unfortunately, you'll come back here again. You see, and I'm being straightforward here. I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that, but I'm not going to tell someone a lie here neither. You see, I'm not going to be your preacher, you see. I'm not going to be a teacher who teaches false doctrine. I'm not going to be your guru, you see, because gurus lie, you see. So does teachers and preachers. In fact, most of them are unconscious themselves. In fact, all of them are. In fact, all people are unconscious, folks. All of them. I don't know of anybody except Phil Langdon, maybe a couple other people. I don't know those, but I'm just saying on this planet. You wonder why this place is a mess. But then again, most people don't realize this place is hell. This is hell. Literally, folks. It is hell. And it's being pointed out to you every day, more and more around you. You see. The rabbit was brought in as a concomitant symbol because, like the pomegranate in the vegetable kingdom, exuberated fecundity made it an apt symbol of the boundless protectivity of life. But God's children, under the biblical designation of Israelites or children of Israel, were destined to be as numberless as the stars of heaven or the seashore sands. The Book of the Dead, so called by the German scholar Lepsi, Lebsius, has for its Egyptian title hieroglyphic Per Em Huru. That is the translation of which is given variously as the, quote, day of manifestation, end quote. Or more exactly, Yes, this is very important. Quote, the coming forth by day, end quote, referring to the emergence of Horus, the Egyptian Christ, from the dark underworld of Amenta into the upper kingdom of light. Light. Light is here, up here, not down there. Okay? Light here, as universally in both scripture and poetry, must be taken as apt reference to spiritual illumination or the expanded powers of consciousness. Like Jesus, Horus has been overpowered by the darkness of the underworld and sucked in overlord, which are just the light of nature. I'm sorry, not light, but the life of nature. In the person of the father Osiris, he has been crucified, dead, and buried. Now in the enchanting wizardry of the spirit, of the spring of a cycle of conscious growth, he has risen from the tomb of bodily death. He had rent the veil of the temple of his mortal flesh. His temple, his temple's up here, not some physical temple. You have everything available, folks, so that you can ascend. You just got to use your noggin and basically eliminate things that basically enchain you and begin to make that upward climb. And the information's here, folks. It's right here. There's no excuse. Now the enchanted, he had rent the veil of the temple of the mortal flesh and stood out. Most always see that as a physical aspect, but it's really actually within your own head, folks. The separation in your body, the two spheres unite. And so the array in new garments of shining radiance. He has thrown off his grave clothes, the cerements of death, and walked out of the sepulchre of clay, clothed in the imperishable robes of solar light. So he's walked out of the sepulchre of clay. Speaking of his body, folks, moving out. See, no longer. The day of resurrection, earth tell it out abroad. The Passover of gladness, the Passover of God, from death to life, eternity, from earth unto the sky. Do you see the rhymes here? From earth unto the sky, I, Christ, hath brought us over with hymns of victory. The Passover of gladness, the Passover of God. From death is all we know, folks. That we don't know life until we actually experience ascension to life eternal. From earth, that is, to the lower part of the spectrum, and to the higher part of the spectrum of the sky. Our Christ had brought us over with hymns of victory. No, there was never a physical Jesus, neither, folks. Let's get that out of your head. Most won't get it out of their head. They hold on to these belief systems, and yet they don't even know what they believe. They don't. But alas, and again, alas, the Consummation Festival that was in its origin and in its deep esoteric conception designed to impress annually. In the thrilling springtime rebirth of Earth's vegetation, the recognition of the apocalyptic glorification of humanity at its eventual evolutionary Easter day, and therefore was intended to serve as a potent psychological agency of moving power in the race on's push to divinity, has almost totally missed its high objective, because from about the degenerate 3rd century of the Christian era, the dull mind of Western humanity has mistaken the festival of mysteries as having meaning only in reference to the alleged resurrection of one single man in remote history. Correct. And we're not supposed to be celebrating that, folks. We're supposed to be celebrating that because it happens to us. It's about us. You see, it's a story, a realization. The resurrection is supposed to happen to you and me. That which was formulated to bring cogent realization to all men of their ultimate apostatization in glory, has sunk to the dimensions of the anniversary celebration of one single event in past history, which even St. Paul warns of, and not pass all the ferment of majestic significance and all the instigations to nobility of life that were designed to grip all hearts and minds, when celebrated under the almost magical mental spur of the vertical transformation of nature, has been run out into the drain and emerged as a mere sentimental celebration of a past event in one man's shadowy life. And reality, folks, there was no quote-unquote literal Jesus or Christ. Never has been. You can tell that basically with the help of Eusebius and Augustine, who taught you this nonsense. And people put Augustine on a pedestal when Augustine is the one who actually kept this from people. He felt simply there was no reason for actually sharing this information to others. Why would you do something of that nature? Why? And when the, quote, celebration each year is over, the event is quickly forgotten, as is similarly, and for the same reason, the case with Christmas. Never will these two symbolic festivals exert their truly divine potential for human uplift until, instead of being staged as memorialities of past events in the life of a Galilean peasant of 2,000 years ago, they are sensed as dramatizations. The one, the encyclical, that is, quote, birth of a Christly consciousness. The other, the ultimate exaltation of that consciousness in the interior life of all humanity. Never were they supposed to be taken as memories, or memorials, I should say, of objective history. They are eternally living memorials of our subjective history in the past, now, and in the future. The judgment here expressed that the perversion, yea, the transmogrification, I should say, the meaning of the scriptural dramas and the allegories into ostensibly objective history allegedly localized in Judea in the first Christian century. And Old Testament history antecedents to that time has been courageously endorsed by no less authority in modern thought than the most eminent professor Carl Jung, who sums up the gifts of the position here advanced in the following paragraphs. The Christe or Christi will forever have the disadvantage we worship a man as a divine model, embodying the deepest meaning of life. And men, out of sheer imitation, we forget to make real the profound meaning present in ourselves. If I accept the fact that a God is absolute and beyond all human experience, he leaves me cold. I do not affect him, nor does he affect me. But if I know, on the other hand, that God is a mighty activity within my own soul at once, I must concern myself with him. In a latter work, that is Psychology and Alchemy, that is from page 7, Jung has elaborated this treacherous expression in greater specification. These pronouncements from the great psychologicalists stand out in modern study as judgments of the most arresting momentousness. They stand as a fortnight challenge to the system of Christianity in its ground claims as the religion winding the highest moral, spiritual influence in the sphere of psychology. That is, the imitation of Christ embodied the faith's supreme mode of the manifestation of its beneficial power to exalt the life of a Voltairius. Yet, this is mightiest arm of unction and its sharpest sword of the spirit. Jung asserts is the feeblest of its psychological instruments, a very vacuum indeed, where real power should be at work. The Church of Christ is certain that it has fulfilled the highest demand, the ultimate proof of its incontestable efficacy of its code of doctrinal acclamations, when it asserts to the world that in the force of its followers' sincere and consecrated efforts to imitate the divine model of Christ Jesus, the man, it has presented the most direct dynamic power of uplift in all the range of religious ideas. What it has asked 1,000 times can compare for downright practical efficiency with the earnest efforts of good people to imitate the paragon of Christlessness, or Christ being like, the Christ man himself. Jung is not unaware of the pregnancy of the question, that is, he surely has canvassed it from all quarters. Yet he reiterates his asseveration that it is this very objective and all the most decisive decisive because of the very assiduous and consciousness of destiny of his pursuit that creates the spiritual vacuum in the inner life of the devotee, and the defeats the one sole and final aim of any true religion, which is the spiritualization of the individual worshiper in the inner core of his soul being. Since the psychologist's position is controversial and seems highly paradoxical, it is well to cite the basic statement that he has made. Quote, I am speaking, therefore, not of the deepest and best understanding of Christianity, but of the superficialities and the disastrous misunderstandings that are plain for all to see. The demand made by the Christ likeness, or what we would call, sorry, I lost my place here real quick. The imitation of Christ. It's an imitation that we should follow the idea and seek to become like it, ought logically to have the result of developing and exalting the inner man. In actual fact, however, the idea has been turned by superficial and formalism minded believers into an external object of worship. Well, of course it has. It's in the Catholic Church. It's in the Greek Orthodox Church. It's even in the Protestant churches, folks. Everybody worships the cross. Even no one on the cross in the Protestant church. You see, the part of the cross that goes upward, the vertical part, is basically about you're supposed to ascend from the lower part all the way up. And the other part is part of the horizon, getting above the four lower chakras, if I say, to the upper three, or square in the circle. And the square is the four lower, the three higher of the triangle, and eventually leads to the spirit or ether. It is precisely this veneration for the object that prevents it from reaching down into the depths of the soul and transforming into a wholeness in keeping with the idea. Accordingly, the divine mediator stands outside as an image, while meaning remains fragmentary and untouched in the deepest part of him. The sincere effort to emulate the Son of God, the psychologist affirms, should edify and spiritualize and exalt the individual Christian, but, and not too strangely, he says it does not work out to this result. And it fails to do so precisely in proportion to the intensity of the effort exerted to push the imitation enterprise outward and focus it upon the external historical model. You see, in Egyptology, folks, there was a Trinity also. All the Jews did was simply take that and borrowed it from the Egyptians and brought it into the Jewish perspective. That's all they did. They just had different names. To achieve true efficiency in religious worship, he implies the intensity of effort must be directly to stirring to life a power resonant within. The cause of failure is the outward direction of the devotion. The very act of imitation of an external model turns the edifying force away from its proper objective, the inner man. So the worship of an outer God leaves the divinity within untouched, unknown, and unawakened. I'll say that again. The worship of an outer God leaves the divinity within, which is within us. Our spirits are from God, untouched and unknown and unawakened. And reason of that simply is why we have so many people who are unconscious, who have no idea what it's about. To adore the external paragon by so much leaves unrealized the potentiality or potential perfectibility of the soul itself. While it can be contended, and Jung concedes the point, that in sincere immolation of the divine man, some at least of his virtue and transforming power must rub off onto the imitator. It is nevertheless an irrefutable deduction that the psychologist here makes from the premises. If the devotee religious focuses the potential of his psychological consecration upon external exemplar, He misses the the benefaction of developing his own inner deity. That's what you're about, folks. It's all here. It's all within. You see? But no one does the great work. They don't do that. They don't read these works. They just assume these things. Oh, I'll follow a guru. Really? I'll follow this person over here. Yeah, yeah. And nothing changes. It's just glass houses. In proportion that one exalts and looks to the image of perfection without, he lets his own soul lie follow, never stirs up the soil within him. In other words, it is not a distant historical Christ soul that he needs to exalt. It is his own that cries for attention, recognition, and adoration. Like the knight who roamed afar to find the holy grail, he will return from his quest to uplift the historical Jesus, only to discover the real Jesus, or real Christ, pleading for his devotion deep down in his own soul. We're going to stop here at this point. It's another section I'll get to. Again, this is from Alvin Kuhn, and the book is simply called Easter, the Birthday of the Gods. You're supposed to stir yourself up, folks. No one can do that except you. No one else. It's your life. No one's holding you back except yourself. All right. Thank you very much, and you have a good day. Take care.